Let's talk immigration just for a second. The way things are going is the same as they've always been. And I think it needs to be talked about. I look back at the 1840s, and that's kind of the beginning of what is considered the old immigration, but that's when the Irish were coming in. Now, as they were coming in, there was a lot of nativism, nativist attitudes. What were the Irish going to take? Let's take a look at that. They were going to take our jobs. They were going to change our culture because they were Catholic, right? They were criminals. They were uneducated. They were going to ruin America. Those jobs should go to regular Americans that are already here. What jobs did the Irish take? I mean, what they could, but they were very influential in the railroad. Transcontinental Railroad, they did a lot of building along with the Chinese. They also had to do the most dangerous jobs in dealing with explosives, et cetera, because they were seen as expendable. And every year I talk about this. To me, it's amazing how so many things are the same. But let's not stop there. During that 1860 to 1880, a lot of folks from the UK, so Scotland, England, Wales, et cetera, continued to come into the country. Now, they were coming in because of push and pull factors. They were looking at opportunities in America to make more money because of industrialization was in full swing. But also, there were some issues. They couldn't own land because it was locked up by the nobility, or they just didn't have the economic opportunities for them to stay. That included people like Andrew Carnegie, who came over as a kid because his father could not be competitive in the first industrial revolution towards the end in the 1830s. But as time goes on, those Northern Europeans, so that's going to be the French, it's going to be the those from the UK, as I mentioned, and Ireland, and that stayed intact up until about the time of 1880. Now, around that time is when Germany and Italy became countries. Now, Italy a little bit before is 1856, but there's a lot of instability. So that political instability was pushing people out. So now in the new immigration period, which is 1880 up to 1910, you're seeing tons of Southern European and Eastern European. What does that mean? That means that the folks from Italy, the folks from Russia, Hungary, they were coming in. Now, what's different? Catholicism with Italians, Jewish population in the Slavic, Greek Orthodox also mixed. So it's not Protestants, which is again seen as changing the culture of America. But what were they coming here for? They were coming here for job opportunities, right? So what did the nativists say? They're taking our jobs. The Italians, they're a part. They're criminals. They are here to change our culture. They're bad seeds. Stop me if any of this sounds familiar. Now you're talking millions and millions of people coming into this country to fill jobs that were needed during industrialization, starting a new life, contributing to society. But not everybody was welcome. That's when you look at Chinese Exclusion Act, where it's the first law that was ever put into place that actually banned people of a certain country of origin that could not enter into the U.S. Even though they were good workers and reliable workers, especially on the railroads, they were also seen as a little bit odd because, one, they weren't Christian. They didn't have that belief system. Two, they ate weird things. Three, they did crazy things like bathe every day. And it just blows me away as I continue to go through this, because immigration for Canadians started to pick up into that early 1900s through about 1950. And they were number one for a long time. And they came for jobs. Yet I've never heard a story that it said, we got to stop letting in those pesky Canadians. That never has come up in conversation. But around 1950, a little bit before then, actually starting in the 20s, Mexico and its immigration started to increase during that time period. Now, you had the Mexican Revolution, you had political instability that was pushing them out, and so it's understandable that they were looking to come to the U.S. But that's when the conversation starts again. They are taking our jobs. They are changing our culture. They need to speak the language, right? All these assimilation type of conversations that are happening. The nativism is alive and well. And there's a lot of other factors. I'm just looking at it from an immigration standpoint. But, even today, when you look at immigration, the only thing that changes is who they are. It went from the Irish to the Italians to the Mexicans. And, now it's, there's Cubans, there's Venezuelans, there's Guatemalans, right? And now it's expanded even further into Middle Eastern countries. But yet, and what are they here for? They're here for jobs. Don't take those jobs from Americans. And see, so when you look at it historically, nativism has always been the driver of trying to protect Americans that are already here. And the only thing that changes is the they in the conversation. But it's interesting. Approximately 100 million people can give their origin through Ellis Island. That's 1 in almost every 3 Americans had someone who immigrated here to the United States and is a part of this country. So immigration's a huge piece. This is not an all-inclusive thing. There's a ton of nuance. Obviously, we're talking about quotas. Obviously, we're talking about the restrictions. There's a lot of laws that have been put into place now. And all those things were done for reasons to try to control population, control the amount of people that they wanted. And you can look back at the laws and the quotas that were set in the 1920s because they took ratios that were prior to the Southern Europeans flooding in. So it really restricted the amount of Italians and Russians and Eastern Europeans that could come in. But you can't have this massive industrialization, this change in our country without understanding the role of immigration. And that rolls into so many other things. For example, political machines and the use of immigrants to keep corrupt leaders in power for the political parties. You can't get away from that. The ethnic enclaves that are involved that created opportunities for people to really be with people of their own culture. So whenever you go to a Chinatown, whether it's in Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, etc., or a Little Italy, those are the ethnic enclaves that were there and people love, and they'll go to attend and eat and spend money there, but understanding that it's a form of immigration and those ethnic enclaves became a part of the American fabric. So always remember, when it comes to immigration, the only thing that changes in the past 200 years almost is who they are. And now you know your freaking history.